The challenges facing our teens today mean that more than ever, we need to be there to support them and encourage them. The Dr. STEM Show is here to provide discussions about topics that will help promote healthy relationships, self-image, and success for teens, parents, and the community. Our young people can achieve more in life than they ever dreamed possible. The Dr. STEM Show, hosted by Dr. STEM Malatini, will foster these discussions and encourage your participation.
One of the things that parents struggle with is raising children from a different culture, especially those parents that are coming in from another country. So today we're going to be talking about the cultural differences of raising children right here in America when you're from another country. And to help me do that, I have my best friend from Zimbabwe, Rose Nderere. She used to be Rose Shenje when I was growing up in Zimbabwe. So welcome to the show, Rose.
Thank you, my dear. It's an honor to be here.
Oh my gosh, she's here for the first time, you all. She's here in America for the first time. How has it been for you?
It's been wonderful. I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you know what, before we start the show, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience.
All right. My name is Rose Nderere, as you have heard. I am 50 years old. I am married for the past 29 years, and I've got 3 kids. And yeah.
And you know what? If she does not mention who that husband is, I know I will personally be offended.
Obviously, having been the maid of honor.
I was the maid of honor at that wedding.
Yes,
that's why.
Yes, my dear. I am married to Jealous Nderere.
Yes.
Yes.
So I was the maid of honor. You know, we were discussing this prior to the show, and I said, was I the maid of honor? Well, we call it best girl. The best girl. That's the maid of honor.
Yes.
And I said, I was in the wedding, but I can't remember whether I was the maid of honor or not. And she's like, you were the maid of honor.
True.
So I am honored to be with you here today, and it's been 29 years
Yes.
since you've been married.
Yes.
And that's another topic, you know, hopefully we'll get to touch that as well, because then a lot of marriages are not staying together. People are not staying that long. 29 years is a long time. And then here you go, oh, I'm 50 years old. So both of us are both 50. We are best friends. When did you turn 50? In May?
June.
Or June?
June,
In June,
yes.
and I was 50 in March.
Oh.
Yep, I know.
Okay.
So
I was
we're
hoping
both
to be older than you.
No, you're not. Anyway, so you know what, as I said at the beginning of the show, one of the struggles that parents have is raising children, especially when they are from another culture. So you being a mother of 3, tell us what some of those cultural expectations are, you know, of raising children, especially in Zimbabwe, because then, you know, you're coming from Zimbabwe, but it's universal, and that's what we're trying to say today, that it's a universal, you know, thing that every parent will go through the same thing. So what are the cultural expectations of raising children?
My dear, I'm going to speak on my own experience.
Okay.
As a mother,
Yeah.
having 3 kids, one being 28, 25, and 17. Regardless, I expect them to maintain a certain level of their values, their norms, you know, social principles. I think that is what builds a person. Yes.
So, because I've worked with teenagers now, you know, I know we haven't caught up yet, but I've been working with teenagers, and that's my expertise of working with teenagers and parents. And what you just said, I can see a teenager goes, okay, values, expectations, norm, what are you expecting from me? What is that?
My dear, first of all, I think just the normal social principles.
What
Be
are those?
Good. Do no harm. Live in love and harmony with everyone else.
Yeah.
And I suppose if you start by doing good, you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you put in love there and you love everyone else, you know, you already are molding a lovable person who who is just going to be
Yeah.
a gentleman or a lady tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll tell you one of the things that I remember when we were growing up, in addition to what you said, whenever we saw older people, we had to greet them first. We have to go and say hello first. And, well, in Zimbabwe, in Shona, we say, hello, but then you have to go makadini, which means how are you?
Yeah.
But we greet them first, which is different, from today's children. Some of them won't even say hi to you. It's a hi in the first place.
Yes.
So then I remember when you said hi to an adult, that was, disrespectful, because then hi?
Yes.
Why are you just saying hi like that,
Yes.
But having to grow up here, that's why I say to parents, specify what it is that you are expecting, not that you have to behave. And what is behave? So I remember that one was one of those things that they wanted. And then you don't speak to your adults standing up. If the adults are sitting down, you cannot just come in and say, can I do this? And, you're talking, when adults are sitting down, you have to sit down and be at their level. True. Or even kneel down.
Yes.
That's another expectation and cultural expectation that, growing up that we had, that parents are probably not saying to their children here. You don't ask why. You ask a parent and they say, Mommy, can I go out with my friends? And then we come back, on Friday night when I come back from school, and she says no. And you go, why? You never ask why.
Yes. We were, I think now because of the generation gap, we grew up and didn't ask why. Yeah. And as we grew up, your child was everyone's child.
That's it.
You had to be, if you were naughty, you were disciplined by the ladies in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You had no right to even come and complain at home because you knew you would still get a second beating. Yes. So you had to behave because whether at school, whether on your way coming from school,
that's true.
You knew everyone was watching you. Yeah. So we grew up in a culture where when your mother looked at you, you would automatically stop and behave because that look meant a lot. Yeah. It meant you would get a hiding when you get home if you were misbehaving.
And remember when we were growing up, because when you went to the same high school, we couldn't wear clothes that were above the knee. And we were so excited to become drum majorettes. And, we used to march on the streets and do, what would they call them here? Cheerleaders. Here they call them cheerleaders. Yes, but we were drum majorettes, and that was the only time that we could wear those short dresses there. And it was like an honor. We were like, we can now wear this. But otherwise, we couldn't wear dresses that were above the knee, remember?
That's true. And remember, when we wanted to do the cheerleading, we had to have like a court case with our parents.
With our parents.
Remember, we were not allowed to do it.
Okay, you know what? We're having so much fun. Today we are discussing cultural differences of raising children, and helping me in the studios today is my best friend who has come directly from Zimbabwe to the United States, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
As a youth motivational speaker, author, and coach, Dr. Stem understands that in a world where today's youth and parents are jaded and disappointed by institutions and people they perceive as out of touch with the reality of their lives, motivation is a dose that is much needed. It's time to excel. Dr. Stem Malatini is a refreshing change from the typical speaker. Dr. Stem understands the pressures, heartaches, temptations, hopes, and dreams of the generation that is just now coming of age. Students listen in transfixed silence as she speaks with the clarity and confidence of someone who has worked with teens, parents, and teachers for over 20 years. Her high-energy school assembly programs create a defining moment for schools and provide an experience students never forget. To reserve your seat in one of her coaching sessions, purchase her books, or to book her services, email her at drstemmmalatini@gmail.com or go to her website at www.drstem.org.
Welcome back. We're talking today about the cultural differences of raising children. And in the first segment, what you learned is it takes a village to raise a child. So, we were talking about how when we grew up in Zimbabwe, everyone could discipline you, a next door neighbor, a teacher, somebody from the church, they could tell you, to stop doing what you're doing, or to, change something,
Yes.
and you
Your
didn't ask
dressing,
them, your dressing,
you were
especially
asked to go and
the
change,
dressing. Yeah,
yes.
they would tell you to go and change before you go to school, and you're walking to school, and you'd have to change. You had to go back. So those are some of the things that we were discussing. Tell me a little bit about the role of fathers. Do you think it's helpful to have a father figure in when you're raising children, because I know you have had the advantage of having your husband by your side for 29 years, was that helpful, and how, would you recommend for people to be in two partnerships when they're raising children?
It's a blessing, my dear, to have someone to be by your side, to help you raise the kids, or because there is a lot that comes in raising kids, be it driving to the school, dropping kids, be it just giving that discipline that we are talking about. Sometimes it's a bit weird. You find kids sometimes hear the mother's voice louder than their father, and vice versa. But in our culture, believe you me, the father's voice is actually heard louder than the mother's.
Yes. So I think one of the things that I also wanted to emphasize is having the role model, the male role model, for the sons, especially when you have a son in the family, because there are a lot of women, especially in this country, that have had problems with their partners, who is the father of the child, and then they choose not to be with the father, but then forget that they have a son who needs that male role model, who needs to have their father in their, in the families. One of the things that I know you're doing in Zimbabwe is you are the mother of the church, for the church women. So what they do is, don't you give advice to upcoming single women that are getting married? What would you advise them in being a new wife, a new mother when you're going in?
It's a partnership, my dear.
Yeah.
It is definitely a partnership. And, I think whether being around, I think you can still be a father. That's the good thing about our culture. Your brother-in-law, your brother, everyone, in the family takes up that role in the absence of the father.
That's true.
So they really, you can't really say there is a gap when it comes to filling the gap of a father or of a mother. But, it's life. Life is different. When you get married, you expect everything. I don't think anyone wants to have a marriage that breaks down. But it's a lot of work. You have to work for it. You have to be patient. You have to be forgiving. And you have to be loving. Yes, and it's unfortunate that sometimes the marriage does break down, but in our culture we have that backup system that helps with the children.
29 years. I still can't believe it, but I had to say 29 years that you've had and been there for 29 years. I'll tell you one of the other cultural differences that, even for me, I have a difficult time with it. We dated. We were dating, we would have a boyfriend, but you would not even think of bringing that boyfriend into the house and cuddling up with the boyfriend on the couch with your father there and your mother there. Is there something that I'm missing, or am I old school not to want to see that?
I don't think you are. I don't think you are old school, my dear, because my daughter is 25.
Okay.
But I have still, I'm also carrying over what my mother and my father did to me. Remember, we had to be home before 6.
Before 6, yep.
Yes. My daughter is a young lady now, working. She wanted to go and stay on her own. But my reaction was like, no, you can't do that. You can only leave this house when you get married.
And that
then
was
I'm
cultural.
thinking, yes, that's cultural. But then looking at the generation gap,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, am I doing the right thing? She's a woman of your own now. Does she deserve to go and stay on her own? But then cultural also says, do you want to marry a woman who is staying on her own? They tend to look at you differently. They think your values have sort of been eroded because you have so much freedom staying by yourself. Yet if you are by your parents, you have to be home by 6. You have certain rules that you have to follow. So
I think I think that's when I become now a professional and think on the other side, because then I understand why, we had certain expectations and values and cultures when we were growing up. But then to have a young lady who's 25 say, you can't leave the house because then, you have to be married before you can go into and it's a different generation. She has to be resilient. She has to learn to stay on her own. She has to experience that freedom so that when she gets into the house, it's not something that she wants to experiment anymore, because there's something called experimenting, with these young people today and saying, well, but I never lived of my own. I never became independent. Why not go out there and be independent if you can afford to?
Yes, my dear, but I also think, it's also the society that has taught us as parents to fear certain unknown.
See, but those are your fears, though. Those are your fears. Those are the parents' fears. So it's almost like we're preaching a double sword message. I want you to be a young lady or a young man who's independent, who can take care of yourself. You can stand on your own, because that's the kind of person that I want to raise. But at the same time, society will talk about you if you go out there, and then
That's
your
true.
norms. So it's like, what do you want? Or what, when can they become, the choice? When can they have the choice to become who they want to become?
That's true, my dear.
It's
you look at it,
Yeah.
and you think, am I being faithful? Am I being honest? But like we said, this is our culture. Now we are then, unless if we are now moving away from our culture and now putting in the Western culture, then you can say, it's fine, sweetie, you can go and stay on your own.
Okay, you know what? This kind of conversation, it never ends. And the reason why I wanted to start the conversation is, as I said at the beginning, a lot of families are struggling between, should I keep my culture and how do I adjust to what, how to raise a child when we are here. So it's an ongoing conversation. We're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
How much difficulty do you have getting your employees or your customers to listen to the solutions you can offer? This may be one of the great frustrations in business. It's time to excel. Dr. Stem now offers solutions with her Soft Skills Leadership Training Program and the Woman's Executive Leadership Training Program. To reserve your seat in one of her coaching sessions, purchase her books, or to book her services, email her at drstemmalattini@gmail.com. or go to her website at www.drstem.org.
Welcome back. We're having so much fun discussing. As I said, cultural differences is something that we can discuss forever. But before I forget, let me just tell you who gave us the clothes. We have to return them because we are actually, being sponsored today by Chennai. The jackets that we're wearing, you can get the same jackets or even other clothes from Chennai. Their website is www.chennai.com, and we'll put it at the bottom of the screen. But that's who sponsored the clothes that we have today. I would say we look pretty today, don't we?
We do.
We-
And would like to thank them for this
Yes,
wonderful
very
donation.
glamorous.
Yes.
So these are jackets that,
Yes.
you know, you can put on top of a black dress, a green dress, pink dress. You can actually...
black pants,
You can
jeans.
dress it up.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks to Sinikiwe Matlatini and her twins, Chantel and Charlene Matlatini. They are the ones that have Chennai.com. So thank you guys for Chennai and also sponsoring the show today. We're talking today about cultural differences of raising teenagers. And as I said, this is my best friend, Rose Nderere, who's coming in from Zimbabwe. So jealous. I hope you're jealous that, you know, today we have your wife here in America. Okay, so now we were talking about, you know, I mean, do we want to drop the cultures, or do we want, let me just say something. Nobody likes to be stressed, and nobody wants to take, you know, the burden of having to control someone that is fighting you, that doesn't want to. So I say to parents, talk to your children, have a discussion, educate them on your own culture, and also understand this new culture that your children are going into. And this is for the ones that are growing up here in America. I know in Zimbabwe we still have the norms, so it probably is easier for you.
Yes.
But when you're raising the children here, I think it's now time to open the dialogue between the parents and the children. That way it's not just because I said so.
That's
Because
true.
this is how it's supposed to
That's
be. Am I
true.
wrong?
I get you, and I think you're not wrong.
Okay.
I also think even being home,
Yeah.
we are getting to that stage where we're looking at, I don't know whether to call it compromising,
Yep.
but because the world is dynamic.
Thank you.
You know, it's inevitable. You know, I remember when my daughter was writing her O-levels, and I had to ask her to come off from social media platforms. And we really had a big fight on that, because I thought that was actually distracting her. And after some time, I realized she needs that for your homework.
Yes.
She needs your phone, she needs your iPad,
Yeah.
you know, she needs to go on the internet and research. So we really have to come out of this. And but I think we have to do it in a manner that we don't destroy our culture, and at the end have an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Because the kids don't really know who they are, where they're coming from, or where they are going. I think I still want my kids to be identified as Zimbabweans and be proud of it.
Well. I hate to tell you this. You still want your kids to be identified as Zimbabweans. Fair and fine. But what if the children themselves, I mean, it's not like, you know, the number one thing on their agenda to say, I have to be identified. Wouldn't you rather have a young, successful, happy, confident child that, you know, has got a good education or a good career, a good life that they have prepared for yourself, without having fought, well, do I still want to keep my parents', you know, culture and values, and that they don't know?
But I still think, my dear, you can have all that and still be identified with your culture. I think you can still be a professor and still be identified with your culture, and you know, without really thinking or compromising.
Yeah.
But you can, like I'm saying, there are things, maybe with technology, there are things that you can compromise on,
Yeah.
you know. But there are things that we have to still maintain. Waking up and greeting your parents, you know. When I go for my runs in the morning, you know, I still want to greet everyone that I'm coming across morning,
and
because that's how we were raised.
That's true. And you know, I mean, a lot of you might look at it and go, "What is she talking about? Why does she want, the cultures to be valued and for us to keep our culture?" I want that to happen, but I think we can teach our children even more if we get to have a conversation with them rather than pounce it on them and have this expectation of cultural values that they don't understand, that they don't know. But having a conversation the way that we're doing, my wish is that I could have had some teenagers with me on set today, so that they could ask you some questions, so that we can talk about what their struggles have been, which is something that will be coming up with the next shows. Have more teenagers on the show that we can talk about this, and then you can hear it from the children themselves. What is it that they understand and what it is that they don't understand?
You see, also, I am looking at it from the point of view that I'm 50.
Yes.
I am still keeping my cultural values. And I got this from my mom. And my mom got them from her mom. So how come I didn't change?
Like I said, it was easier. How can I say this? It was easier for our parents and ourselves to continue that tradition because we were home.
Yes.
And the whole village was for us. And everyone helped. So there's no place that I could turn to and say, I can do what I want because then Mrs. So-and-so, she's not my mother. And she's not, we couldn't do that. So everywhere you went, it was, the same. The expectations were the same. How you're supposed to behave was the same. How you're supposed to talk to the elders was the same. You come here now in America or in any other country, your neighbor is not even from your country. They're from, Jamaica or they're from Haiti. The expectations are the same, I understand, but it's different at the same time because, quote unquote, they are not from Zimbabwe or they are not.
True.
If I'm from Jamaica, they're not from, they're from Zimbabwe. So the parents are not going to be asking me not to do stuff. They're not going to be talking to me. And then we have the children now that are going, you can't tell me that. You're not my parent. So it's really hard.
Yes.
And how do we bridge that gap is, I think, what we continue to have discussions and talking about. And my thing is, can we be open-minded, as you said, to bridging that gap?
I think in all this, you can never be able to do it unless you ask for wisdom from God.
From God, yes.
I've tried to raise my kids with my husband on Christian values as well.
Yes.
That has been a very great help.
Yeah.
So I don't have so much infighting because they are believers, they are Christians.
Yes.
So it's easier that way.
And thank you for reminding us that, because then, you know what, I know I am who I am and you are who you are because of that Christian background that we have and because our parents prayed.
Yes.
So to them, we thank you, for all the prayers and, we just hope that we've made them proud with who we are today and what we've done. You've stayed in the marriage, I'm here doing a career, and here we are today talking about our lives.
Yes.
So I wish we had more time, but we really truly have to say goodbye to the people. I hope this has been an encouraging discussion that we've had today. Also, I hope that you've learned one or two things that you might be able to continue the discussion in your homes, in your schools, in your churches about raising your children with a different background and a different cultural background that you have yourself, as well as your children's background, cultural background. So we'll do this again. I pray that you'll come back to America and we can be back on the TV.
Much.
And thank you for watching the Dr. STEM Show.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. STEM Show. Have a terrific week.